All right, what's up, everybody? This is Eddie with Up Next Hoops. Today we've got another episode of Hoop Talk. I got a special guest with me, Khurram Sultan of In the Dark Basketball is joining us today. We're pretty much just trying to connect. I'm trying to connect with as many people in the basketball space as possible, learning about different journeys. So I've been talking with trainers, coaches, players, just figuring out how they got started and how they got to the point where they're at now. So that's pretty much kind of what we're going to go over today. Got a lot of questions for you. Very interested to hear how you got your start. So I'll kind of turn it over to you if you want to just kind of take it away. And if you want to go back to your early basketball, beginnings, how you got started. Were you playing growing up as a kid? Like, just kind of tell me a little bit about that and how you got the ball in your hands.
For sure. Well, first of all, appreciate you having me on the show. I love every time I see a new podcast kind of start up, especially basketball wise. I think it's so crucial and people often don't use it enough. So it's nice to have like the back end story of it all. With that being said, I started playing basketball when I moved to Canada. So I was born in Pakistan and I was kind of back and forth between Pakistan and United Arab Emirates in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So when we came to Canada, I had no idea like what anything really was. To me, what we were being told was that Canada is a land of opportunity and has all these things. And I love Canada. But mentally, I wasn't really ready for going from Dubai to St. John's, Newfoundland, and a bunch of snow. So when I got there, I was obviously indoor sports were big. And that's when I first started really seeing basketball. I didn't really play it right away. I actually remember my first bucket. It was grade 3. We went outside for recess, and I just happened to grab a ball, and I chucked it up, and it went in. And the feeling that I had with that ball going through was like, I can still feel it to this day. I immediately ran over to my brother, who was also with me at that school, and told him, I was like, you have to try this. When you put the ball through the hoop, you get this really amazing feeling. So that was like the spark of it all. I didn't really take it seriously, especially because we just moved. Culturally, it's a huge culture shock, and we don't really understand what's kind of happening at the same time. So sports was probably at the bottom of the list of really everything that we were doing in Canada. So I really started. I didn't really play sports till I would say grade 6 is when I started. And it was because I had a huge growth spurt. So I went from being like about average height compared to everyone to being the tallest person in the grade. And I was 5'9" at the time. And that was huge for, well, maybe not if you look at it in America, but for us, that was, I was noticeably taller and I was playing post. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. I'm going to be as tall as Dwayne Wade. And long story short, I'm still 5'10". So I didn't really much so yeah, that's how I got started. But yeah, the moment I took it seriously, because we moved so frequently, it was something that gave me the opportunity to really kind of find my own way of peace. I could go outside, I could shoot around, I could invite my brother out, and like me and my brother didn't really talk as much during that time. But when it was time to play basketball, it was something that we both loved, and we could just go out to the driveway, shoot some hoops. But yeah, that's I'm sorry, I don't know if I missed a portion of it. You just said the starter. Yeah, so yeah.
That's cool. That's definitely cool because like I've asked the same question to other people and they can never like pinpoint an exact moment. And I thought it was cool that you were like, yeah, I was 3rd grade, hit that first shot, and since then it just took off.
Yeah.
So, did you, as you grew older and stuff, did you play like at the high school level or like what was your playing background look like? What does that look like?
So I was playing provincial soccer, and we have, I think it's state for you guys, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So provincial soccer and basketball. And soccer is actually my main sport, and I love soccer.
Sweet. I played soccer too growing up, so there was basketball and soccer for me as well. So
yeah, I feel like that's a great combo for athletes, especially basketball athletes. But I started playing in grade 6, and then grade 7 and 8 is when I started taking it really seriously. I was able to score like a bunch of points, probably up in like the high 30s. There's one game where I was close. I can't remember the exact like score sheet because I didn't care for it at the time, but I remember it being so high that my teammates were like, "Yo, that's crazy! You scored this many points," and I was like, "Oh, cool." But I started playing grade 7, 8. Grade 7 is when I would say I started playing really competitively in St. John's, Newfoundland. Then we moved to Edmonton, Alberta in Canada in grade 9. So then I started playing. I played on the junior high team there. We came second in cities, lost by 2. And that kind of really fueled me to get better that off season because I didn't really know what an off season was. I just loved basketball. So each day was off season to me. So every time I don't have organized sports, it was going back to just playing and figuring out how to get better. So I played high school basketball at Harry Ainley High School, which is, I don't know if you can see this jersey, but the jersey hung up in here. It's known as one of the best high schools in Edmonton. There's 2 guys locally that are playing in NCAA right now who both went to Ainley, and a bunch of guys who play university throughout. There's one guy, Jordan Baker, who played Team Canada, and I played with him when I was a year younger. So I've always like kind of been around basketball, and then I went on to play at Red Deer and Lethbridge, 2 different colleges here.
Okay.
And that was and I was pursuing overseas. I ended up having a few looks. I ended up having micro tears in my Achilles and my calf when I went. So then I ended up going to Barcelona and then flying back about a month later.
Dang. I feel see, I never got to that level. But I mean, I was plagued with knee injuries, and that's kind of like what, set it off for me, where I was like, all right, I want to stay in the game, but my playing days may be over, but like, how can I stay in basketball? And, and that's when I kind of got into the whole training thing. But that's awesome. What would you say, like, so playing in Canada, I mean, I'm sure, do they have like a whole travel program and stuff out there as well at the time when you were playing, or was it just primarily school ball? Like,
it was primarily school. Like the travel would be local within, like we would go maybe a state over, but we wouldn't cross borders to the U.S. We had teams come from Cali to come play in a few tournaments here. So we get to play against some of the competition. Like there's a tournament called Red, and guys like Ben Gordon has played in it before. And I can't really remember too many names off the top, but that was the one name during my time when I was playing, when I was like, I know Ben Gordon. He's in the NBA right now. He's killing it. So, the competition it was pretty good. And there's I can't remember who it was, but a few Canadian universities at the time were also playing NCAA teams. And we ended up beating a few teams. I can't remember who it was, but some of them went on to make it to the final. I think UConn lost the year that they won.
Mm-hmm. That's
which is kind of, So like it's always interesting to see like the change of competition, but I know the rules and stuff were different as well because you guys are used to 35-second shot clock versus 24.
Right. Yeah. So how so I'm interested because I've never been to Canada personally, but I'm interested kind of in what the hoop like culture looks like there versus here in the States. Like I know obviously I've seen like especially over like the last 10 years, just countless guys come from Canada, make it to the league. They have Wiggins, Anthony Bennett's, and to name just a few. But I mean, tell me and then kind of elaborate on that a little bit, like because you've been to the United States, obviously, so you've kind of seen both cultures. So I just kind of wanted to see what the major differences that you saw at least, and kind of just tell me a little bit about the state of Canadian basketball.
The state of Canadian basketball out east is a little bit better. That's where guys like Andrew Wiggins, Jamal Murray, Anthony Bennett, those guys are at. Out west is still kind of in the building infrastructure. If you think about like over here, they haven't had many basketball programs outside of just school programs. Like if you were playing club basketball after school was over, it was most likely fun. Like the coaches weren't really telling you what to do. It was almost like finally I get to play how I want to play without
Right.
any coach telling me anything. And now it started to switch a lot more. So now they have different programs. Now there's 24 different teams with different tiers, and some guys play in AAU tournaments down south. So that's definitely interesting because like now the opportunities, the exposure's there. I think from a training standpoint, it's still kind of lacking because you don't really see what the guys in the States are doing. You just assume that you're doing the most because compared to people you train with, compared to people who are your competitors, they're training a certain amount of times. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen is like guys start off at a way earlier age in the States and they're already fairly developed or had the opportunity to really explore their skill, see what's natural to them, see what's not natural, and really figure out their weaknesses a lot earlier. Over here, it's almost like you get to high school and some guys might not know the right footwork for a proper layup going left because they just haven't had that exposure to practicing as much. And at that point, it's more so, okay, this is your role. This is what you do. Don't do anything outside of that from time to time.
Gotcha.
And I'm sure like there's some coaching staff that is able to make it work and does a really good job of it. But I feel like some of those things don't need to be learned once you're in high school. And if you have to spend time learning, that is preventing you from kind of progressing forward and learning other things.
Gotcha. So do you think, so with it being kind of in the earlier stages of, you know, trainers and players just all together, like you thinking that this is going to be something like in 10 years going to be completely different? It's going to, do you think it'll ever get to the level of the United States, kind of where it's at as far as from a training, playing aspect?
So that's probably one of my biggest goals is I've had a few opportunities to not be based out of Edmonton, out of Canada. And my biggest thing is I want to bring back stuff that isn't available here and try making a shift in the culture of basketball maybe 10 years down the road. Like the guys that end up training with me now are able to see what difference it makes within those 5 years. And then if people see it, if people are able to really witness like, okay, this guy was able to do this, maybe training should be starting a little bit earlier. Maybe this is something that we could look at because it's not that athletes aren't good enough. I think they're just not exposed to the right amount of training and the right style of training early enough.
Right. Sounds like they just don't have the resources maybe that we have.
Yeah. I mean, there's trainers here, which is good.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's easy to put your foot off the pedal because there's only a few here.
Gotcha.
They're still learning. It's not that they're not learning, but
Right.
I feel like more effective ways. And if kids have dreams of playing at a higher level up, that's what I'm kind of looking at. So there's the two guys from Ainley that I was just mentioning who play NCAA. They're freak athletes, like 6'6", 6'4". Sabri has probably like a 40+ introvert. And from a skill standpoint, that's what I'm trying to do right now is I already talked to them earlier in the year that I want to be working with you guys because I want to help you take your game to the next level. So if you're interested, let me know. And the first comment was, yeah, this guy who trains with Micah busted our butts when we played against him. So I want to be as good as these guys, right?
Right.
So I think even just being able to train some of those high-level guys, teach them things, and provide them with value so then they're able to take it and play in the NCAA and maybe make some different type of noise. And people even recognize that. So just trying to do my best and my part of what I can do in terms of trying to shift the culture in this.
Yeah. Awesome, man. And that kind of like brings me into the next topic. And I just kind of wanted to figure out how you got your start in training. I know you came up with, obviously you came up with in the dark basketball. Was that something you got started with right away, or did you have any mentors getting started? Like, what did that look like for you?
So in the dark basketball really started in my mind. I remember we moved so much, and the one constant that always remained was basketball for me. So I always thought you get X amount of years playing in high school, X amount playing in college, and you might not play pro. You might like anything can happen. You're just I was trying to figure out how to really keep basketball in my life. And I remember Devin Williams. So I used to watch his series a lot when I got
In the
hurt
lab.
in the lab. So
Yep.
I was really trying to figure out how to get better during like a tough time for me. I ended up getting hurt and I had to sit out for over a year and kind of like rebuild my whole backup. So during that time in the lab, tutorials like through Dev is what I was seeing. And then ironically, he just ended up coming to Edmonton. And it was like the craziest scenario because I was watching this guy. I was like a little fanboy when he came. I was trying not to be like it, but like if you think about what my day revolved around was watching some of his videos, going straight to the gym, coming back. So it was like that's all I was seeing. So to me, it was something that I really valued. And when I got hurt, it was almost like a question mark, like, am I still good enough to be playing at this level? Like, what's going on? So when Dev came, he ran a camp, and obviously I wanted to impress him and do as much as I could, work hard. And throughout the camp, I just kept on getting better and better. And then when we ended up playing, I ended up having probably one of the best performances out of everyone, just shooting wise. And during that time, Dev was also talking about what not to do. He was kind of going on a little tangent of don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, shooting wise. And I remember him grabbing a bunch of video whenever I was shooting and the way I was moving. And he kind of had like, he ended up making a post on me. So like that made my day. And I really started to talk to him after that. And at that point was the point when I started thinking video and media, whatever you want to call it, that's always been a part of me that I've always wanted to kind of like explore. And I remember I used to buy a camera in high school, like an expensive camera. Well, at the time expensive, like 500. And I'm like, I need this. And I would be too shy to use it. And during that time, no one's carrying a camera around. So if you're the guy with a camera around everywhere, you look like a tool. And then on top of that, you're still an athlete. So it's like, it was almost, my biggest fear was I didn't want people to think that I'm doing it to put myself over them in the online world or whatever.
Right.
But in my mind, I just wanted to really express how I felt because I was a very introverted person. I was very shy. I was very shy to people that I didn't choose to talk to. So if I was just out and about, if it's with my teammates, super talkative. Anyone else, you're probably not going to hear much from me.
Right.
So I had the idea of that, and I started really studying almost everything. I like right now, it's funny because I'm fasting right now. The reason I started was because I didn't go to parties. I don't drink. And I just thought to myself, like, I'm always spending so much time on YouTube, just laughing and trying to waste time. So then I could get through the fast because of summertime. And then one day I just kind of flipped it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to put all my money into this and I'm going to learn everything while fasting. So I would just stay up the entire night when I would be allowed to eat, learn, and then slowly apply something every day. And that became a habit for the last 5-6 years. So when people ask me, how is it, like, how'd you learn this? Where'd you learn this? It was honestly through trial and error because I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what a lot of the effects were called, tutorials were called. I just had to search up random stuff until I saw something. And then from there, I kind of like gravitated to something else. And the reason I really wanted to go about that was to ultimately get into the training world after I'm done. And I felt like media was a great way to go about it because I saw what Devin was doing. And I really noticed that no one else was doing it at that time. And I figured that if I started now, I would have a head start when I would be starting to train. So I just end up basically finishing up playing for the most part. And I don't know if I'm going to play again. I'm still trying to figure that part out. But I just finished playing this past year. And now I kind of have the tools and the skill set media wise. And I've been studying it like crazy. So like every off season, I would train with certain buddies who would want to get better. I trained like a few kids here and there, but I really was observant and really broke down the game as much as I could, and watched guys like Micah, J-Law, Dev, and those guys. So I actually had it on my list to get Micah's certification done. So it's just ironic that the moment I end up getting hurt, I felt like I didn't know why it happened. I was like, this had to have happened for a reason, because I worked my butt off the entire year. I ate clean. I did literally everything I could. And for me to get injured at that point, I was like, there has to be a reason. That was like the only thing that was kind of pushing me through. So when I came back, Micah saw some of my stuff at that point and invited me to come down and collaborate together and kind of work together. And that way I was able to learn more from him as well, which is amazing. So I feel like it kind of worked out in the way that it should. And I'm not mad that it worked out the way it did. In fact, I'm fairly religious. So yesterday when I was praying, I was thinking to myself, like I hadn't had such a deep prayer in a while. And I came to the realization that I felt like God purposely didn't let me have it early, because I tried making myself go viral, and people are telling me, Colin from Shot Mechanics was telling me that my stuff was amazing, and he has 800 and something thousand subscribers and whatnot, Mike Dunn and those guys.
Right.
So I was like, it's getting noticed, but I'm not getting what I want out of it. But that always forced me to learn more and more, get back to the computer every night. It's almost too obsessive to the point where I couldn't shut my brain off. Exactly. Same thing happened last night. So I tried sleeping. It just
Didn't work.
Sometimes a lot of it doesn't happen. But yeah, that was essentially the mindset that really led me up to these moments and point to be able to get the information, to have the media side kind of backing it. And honestly, I've invested, like people think that I'm making a ton of money doing this right now, but I've invested way more than what I've made right now. And it was because I love it. And it was because I really wanted to make it my life. And I didn't want to do it at a mediocre level where if I was like I really wanted to make it a huge business and thing within Canada. If I wanted to train, I don't want to be training, say at 40 and I'm still doing the same thing. I just had to see some progression down the road. And that was my biggest mindset, was, okay, I'm doing this now. How can I make the shift in culture, and how can I progress from that? So eventually my future kids have time to spend with me versus me still working my butt off doing the same thing that I'm
now. No, I completely get that. Yeah, no, that's an awesome story. I feel like, yeah, I mean, I couldn't even imagine, you getting ready to go play, overseas, and then all of a sudden, this unfortunate injury happening, and then kind of just shifting everything. But and then obviously you got lucky and blessed enough to kind of link up with Micah and them. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about too, is like, what was that experience like actually going down to the headquarters? Because me personally, I haven't been there yet. I got certified with Impossible like about a year ago, but I did it all online, so I haven't actually been able to get out there to Michigan at all.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that experience and what that was like for you, and kind of like your first impressions of Micah, because I first met him, I was just blown away, like right away, like with all the stuff he had. So
before we get into it, you mentioned that I got lucky, which I did. And for anyone watching this, that's the one thing people always say, oh, you got lucky. Not you got lucky in like a negative way. Right. But the message that I'm trying to portray is the reason I got lucky, luck will come. But unless you've prepared for it for years to come, that you won't be ready for that luck moment. So
right. Yeah, and by no means was like, hey, you got lucky. Like, you put in the work to get there, Yeah.
So. And I know you meant like that. I just wanted to kind of clarify in case any viewer took a different route. But with Micah, I remember so I remember getting to Michigan. This is actually funny because I don't think he knows this. I got to Michigan late. I had no idea what was happening. at this point, I'm like, is this fake? Like, is this real? Like, what's going on? And when I got there, same thing happened. I could not fall asleep. And the next morning, I think I slept an hour. The next morning, Joshua Dudley comes into my room. He's like, Khurram, let's go. We're leaving. And I was like, at this point, I didn't shower. I didn't do anything. I was like, what time is it? And I started panicking. I hadn't slept in for anything in so long. And my biggest fear was I sleep in, or I need a lot of alarms sometimes when I don't sleep. So I didn't want to wake the whole house up with my alarms from like 2 hours prior leading up to when I got to wake up.
Right.
So I ended up going into his facility 20 minutes late, meeting him for the first, and I didn't shower. Like, I just got ready as fast as I could. Brushed my
Right out of
teeth,
bed.
right out of bed, and put on some clothes. And I was like, I had all these things planned. Like, I'm gonna have like my hoodie on. I'm gonna take a picture with him, and it just got straight to kind of work. It was really interesting. He's a very detailed guy, as you know, but he's very strategic. So the reason that I was so intrigued by him, and I really wanted to do his certification and kind of get in contact with him, was because I saw that he really was taking like crazy leaps when it came to the business side of it all. And that's what I really wanted to do with my stuff. And that's why when I wanted to go see him, I really wanted to see how he observed business wise, how he was able to kind of manage everything. Because I think as trainers and someone, especially with the social media world that consumes you, it almost, like, I hate social media. If I didn't have it for business, I probably wouldn't even be on it.
Right. I feel the same. So,
and it gets frustrating, but like, I just wanted to see how he managed that side and this side and how he had the team. But meeting him it was almost like he treated you like a friend, and he kind of treated everyone the exact same, which was awesome. He'd come in flip-flops sometimes, or what do you guys call it? What do you guys call it? Sandals?
like slides or
Slides, yeah.
slides, yeah.
He'd come in some slides and just super nonchalant, chill. And I remember, like, he'd talk to me about certain things, and I was doing some of the video stuff, and I almost felt like I was part of the team for that month, and I feel like I was able to help and contribute. These guys were able to teach me a bunch of different things, and I just really, like, Mike is what you see is what you get. He's not going to be any different behind your back or anything. The last day, I actually requested him to do a podcast with me, and he was like, "No, I'm not doing that. I don't do those." Right? And I wasn't nervous to talk to him up until that point. And at that point, I don't know if you've seen the video, but I am like borderline shaking. I'm stuttering. I don't know what to say. My voice is like super quiet, and I'm like,
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't realize how powerful of a guy he is, because he treats you so normal, and he doesn't see himself as someone so high up. He just treats you like he treats anyone else, and he wants to get treated the exact same way. So he'll have his kombucha drink at like noon. He won't have fruits and veggies. You just see him so much as a human that you forget how detail oriented, or how big time he is. And then when it came to the basketball training, it was everything and more that I wanted. So like, being able to learn from him firsthand and really understand everything to a T, because like, that was my biggest thing before, is I want to train people, and I understand moves and I understand certain things, but I want to know the whys to it, and I wanted to know the detail behind it. So then in case someone does ask me, I want to know, oh, this is called a push cross or a drop, and you push off from this part of your foot because of this and this. So it definitely opened up my eyes to a bunch of different things. And I started watching some of my old videos where it's just me and my buddies training. And I came across some footage where he's asking me, why do you do this? And I was explaining it to him just by hand gestures and kind of like putting it out there. But then now with Micah's training, I just realized that I could probably have done that exact same thing in probably 5 seconds, and being like, oh, this is why, this is why, this is why.
Right.
So it was amazing. I definitely plan to go back at some point if I get the opportunity. Well, obviously not right now, but
Yeah.
definitely one of the guys that I would love to. It's just super fun to be around. He has a facility, so you get to play hoops and be around basketball at all times. So no one can really argue that when you're a hooper.
Oh yeah. No, that sounds like paradise to me. So
Yeah.
yeah. Well, when you go back, definitely let me know because I've been wanting to get out there and
Yep.
get out there for like a week or something. And because all I see is the videos online, and I'm like, man, this place looks amazing. And
Yeah.
but no, I agree with kind of what your first impressions and everything were. Because when I first met him, I was nervous. 'Cause I'm here in Raleigh, so I kind of came up with Anthony Porter.
Okay. Yeah.
He kind of took me under his wing, so I consider him big mentor and friend of mine for sure. And he was the one that was like, "Hey, come to this trainers conference." I think it was last November. So when I got out there, I went right. We got right out there, went to the gym, and Micah was there, and I didn't like know what to do. Like I was like, he's
Yeah.
kind of like, because I mean, this is a dude like I've admired for like years on
Yeah.
watched his videos. So and then here I am like Joe Schmo walking through the door, and like he's probably like, "Yo, who's this guy?" Like,
Yeah.
so like no, but he was down to earth, and my biggest takeaway from him was just the knowledge he had and his ability just to like, you could ask him a question and then boom, he like shoots off just bundles of information. And it was just like, man, like I was blown away with everything that he knew and his ability just to get that message across. So, I mean, didn't matter if it was just a couple of us talking or if it was, we were in the middle of the camp with 100 kids around him. Like there was no hesitation on his part, and it blew me away for sure. So with all the details.
Yeah. That was also the crazy part, is I got to witness a lot of their recordings, and I'm like, I have no idea how Micah does it, because he does not need many takes. This guy he's great at speaking. He's able to relay various types of messages with different complexity in them, and it's just so fluid. And he makes it look so effortless that when it's your turn to talk, you're like, I'm gonna need probably like 20 more takes than Mikey just took.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's something I'm still getting used to this day. It's just like being in front of the camera and cut out all the
Dude, trust me, I'm the same
words. So yeah, and then that was another thing that Anthony, see, I said it again, that Anthony, he's been very good. He's a very good speaker. He'll get in front of huge groups of kids and he just rallies it off too. You could tell him and Micah are just super good at communicating and getting the message and point across. So that's definitely something I'm trying to work on now, and just being more detailed oriented and just being comfortable speaking in front of huge groups. And no, that's awesome. I definitely want to get down there. It just looks like a lot of fun. So but yeah, if you could what were your kind of first impressions? Because I know getting certified by Impossible, obviously Impossible has a lot of hate too, kind of, oh, why are you guys doing this? Why are you doing that? Like, what were your first impressions of Impossible?
I was always bought into it. Like I remember seeing his stuff like 10 years ago, and I'd be showing it to my mom and be like, "Mom, look at this." She's like, "Oh, cool." Like, I don't know what this says. But yeah, I would be doing a lot of this stuff, and it gets, because it's so new here, it's getting a lot of hate here as well, which is fine. Like I get it. Me being here for the long run, I feel like I'll make enough of an impact so that when it is time for people to really see if this works and they see the results, the game speaks for itself. That's all. Like we've always said that as players, and now it's kind of shifting that towards being a trainer and tools and like all that stuff. It's so funny because I started teaching my baby brother in the basement during the whole coronavirus, and he was able as a kid, and what I was talking about earlier was for kids to start playing basketball at an earlier age and develop. He was able to look at all the dots, know exactly where to place his foot, and actually understand certain things without me even having to explain it, because the visual aid is there. And then now he's able to do the same things without the mat. And that was the biggest thing, is because I honestly, like, I hadn't trained many people, and I'm starting to get to that point. I trained a few, but they're high level athletes, and they weren't able to get it. So I was like, maybe this is just harder for them or different. But then when I was able to teach someone who knows nothing about basketball and they were able to get it, and kind of like spark something in me, I always knew it was going to. I never had no doubt. And the athletes that I was working with were getting better. But the body positioning on, like, for example, a drop, when you have such a skinny stance, and especially here for guys like them, guys like here in Sabri, who I was mentioning earlier, is they're so athletic and gifted, and they worked really hard as well, but their lines were just so straight that they would never ever have to worry about having a wide stance. So they loved the footwork, Matt. Like, they weren't actually able to see. I did a few Zoom sessions with them, and they got like tape coming out now and like putting it down on the ground and really working on it. And that's the part that I like the most, is there's going to be a lot of people that are going to hate because it's new. But ultimately, as long as the athletes feel like they're getting better, the politics is going to be there in every industry. That's never going to change. If you're Nipsey Hussle would always talk about, if you are taking someone's business, you're short-stopping their grind all the time. And they're going to have some sort of reaction to it if they feel like you're some sort of real threat or competition. So I personally somewhat take it as a compliment, because if I wasn't getting any reaction, it just means that my stuff isn't worthy of a reaction. And the fact that it is means that if I know that it's good and I know that it works, then there's no reason why I wouldn't pursue and push it more and more. So ultimately, for me, it comes down to the athletes and the top guys really reaching out to me, and trying to get like their younger brothers signed up, for example. That's been something that's made me feel remotivated, rejuvenated towards being able to want to continue pushing more and not really think about the hate, and more so focus on the people who are requiring that type of training.
Right. Now, that's great. So you would say that definitely, like, introducing, kind of a new way of training with the I'm Possible philosophies and stuff, like, your kids have taken a liking to it.
Yeah. Everyone that I've trained has loved it. The problem is I've only been able to train them once,
Right.
or once or twice in person, because they were just finishing up the season. They were still in school. And now a lot of the high school athletes were finishing up school. Cities, provincials, and same thing as state was going on. So I had to wait it out. No one's going to take that level of training right before championship games.
Right.
So I think just being able, like, I think they weren't able to experience the benefits of it right away. Because I feel like if after 2-3 sessions, actually even after the first session, they felt a difference, but they don't know if that's it. I feel like that's the vibe that I kind of got. Is like, is this all there is to it? Is there more? Like, what else? So now I started doing Zoom sessions and giving them a little bit more, and they kind of see the value in it again and appreciate it. So I think, going back to the whole point of, like, do I believe in the training? 100%. I will always be a firm believer in it. I think game enhancement has its benefits, but I feel like there's plenty of game enhancement here. Not enough skill training.
Agreed. And I think even with as crazy as it is here, and how many trainers there are here in North Carolina, there's not enough that are focusing on the skill side of things as well. It's primarily game enhancement trainers that are out there. So I think that's where we fit in, and we can provide something different and something out of the ordinary, I guess, to these kids. So I love it. I mean, since being here for a year, I've enjoyed it, and it's taught me a lot personally, and then I'm kind of translate that to the kids. So,
yeah.
So we're going to get ready to wrap up here in just a moment, but I had like 1 or 2 more questions for you. During this time that we're in with COVID-19, what are some things you've kind of been doing I know a lot of, like you stated just a moment ago with the Zoom training. Like, is there any other projects you're doing, or like how has COVID-19 kind of affected what you've got going on?
In terms of building my name locally, it's been tougher. In terms of building a global audience, it's been almost a blessing. I've really started to reinvest into like myself a little bit more because I learn a lot, but sometimes time is money. So some of the things that I find beneficial, I applied for a few courses that required a certain level of requirement that if you are already know this, and it was very narrowed down niche of people, then you could be in this pool of people. So I've been really working on YouTube because I've always felt like my content has been great.
It's very
But appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. Like Instagram, YouTube, I'm following you on both. So
Yeah.
I love what you're putting out. So
No, appreciate that. The hardest part for me was it would always kind of get to like 1,000, 2,000. Some would get like 10,000, 13,000 views, but that stuff was before. And I didn't really figure out the full circle of it all. So the term content is king, which I 100% believe. But what I didn't realize, the queen is marketing and she runs the house. So you can have
I like that.
best content. I can't take credit for that. That's actually what I learned from the course. And that's what got me to buy into the course. Is like, I already got so much value out of it. And when it came to seeing if they wanted to put me into that special niche, I was like, yeah, 100%. Because making the content is the hardest part. Once you distribute it, you don't want to have to worry about, oh, this didn't get the reach I wanted. Like, I feel like this is better, not in comparison, but like level wise, I feel like it's up to par, if not better than some of the best out there. But then mine's getting 1,000, 2,000, and theirs getting 100,000, 1 million. So that was the part that I really been working to figure out. Like yesterday, I probably spent 13 hours on the laptop, glued to it, doing more and more and more. And it helped because I was fasting and I didn't really have much else to do. But then even towards the end of it, when I was done fasting, I was working out. I ran 5K. I was trying to shut my brain off, and it was nice to not have to think that I need to learn more. But the moment I was done all of this, I was like, I want to go back to the laptop, but I know if I do, I'm not going to sleep, which I should have done at this, because I didn't sleep anyway. But I think that's been the biggest shift. I think at this point, money wise isn't going to be the opportunity to work on my brand full time. I'm not going to get the opportunity to make money training people. I'm definitely going to get. So I don't see it as like a time to capitalize on making money. I feel like if I grow my reach and build a bigger audience, I'll be able to do that just fine, kind of going forward. And at the same time, like, I've been blessed to be in contact with a few towns locally that have schools that don't have access to any trainer, let alone like I'm possible trainer. Right. So I've been working on trying to get certain schools on board and trying to give these guys access that even after COVID is over, they still don't have a trainer. So I can teach them certain things and I can create a certain structure out of it. And with that, even after COVID's gone, I look at longevity of everything, always with the end goal in mind, because that kind of allows me to reverse engineer any sort of plan that I may have. So in terms of COVID, it hasn't been bad. I just pray everyone's healthy and safe. Yeah. But aside from that, if we're looking at just time, it's been great. My life hasn't changed much. In fact, it's been further enhanced in terms of output when it comes to social media, because I've had a lot of people ask me how I do it all. A lot of it is lack of sleep, but like to be able to edit a podcast, I have like probably 3 different pages. I have YouTube. So it's just a lot of different forms of content that I have to stay on top of. And I've started to narrow it down, obviously, but COVID's been like the time that's allowed me to really not feel bad about doing all of that stuff all at once.
Sure. So you're looking at, you took away, or you're taking a negative time kind of with what's going on, but turning it into a positive, focusing on things that you might not have had the time to do before, building your brand, and just spending more time on stuff like that versus, I mean, of course you're losing the time in the gym, but you're still being productive with the brand and growing it. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah. And that's something I've been talking with other trainers and stuff about too. And they're all kind of saying the same thing. Like, you know, they're in front of a camera more now than they've been able to do because they're constantly bouncing from gym to gym. But now, you know, being stuck at home, you lose the gym aspect, but you're putting out more content, and you're, you know, it's kind of forcing us to be more creative and get more stuff out there. So I've been enjoying it, to be honest. So
yeah, it's nice. It's interesting to see people's different levels of creativity, and it's almost, I don't see that as much as I see the progress. That's what I love most, is like they started off trying this out and I see like a slight little bit difference, and it really brings me back to the times when I'd be in my room with the laptop, and to me it wasn't much difference, but that little bit of difference was just the right direction towards making it a change down the road. If you have that mindset every single time, that it doesn't matter how good or bad it is, but if you're improving slightly, like the 1% rule that everyone talks about,
right,
that's ultimately going to pay off. And I think that's why, like, I've really been that focused on my branding, because my slogan is train in the dark, shine in the light. So everything that you do that isn't seen is what allows you to actually be able to perform it when the spotlight's on you.
Love it. I love it. All right, man. And last and not least, like, last thing I kind of wanted to touch on was just, as somebody maybe who's just getting started, who's working on their branding, working on their content, what's some pieces of advice? Like, I know me particularly, I kind of, you know, struggle with the idea, is that, you know, quality over quantity, quantity over quality, you know, as far as now content on whether it be Instagram, YouTube, like what are some, touch on that, but touch on some other things maybe that you would advise like up and comers, you know, whether it be trainers or people that are just trying to build a brand.
I would really focus on what differentiates you. Obviously, like everyone always says that, but take it a little bit further. So, for example, did you ever see those call out, or like the animations where the line comes out and the text pops up?
Yeah.
So I feel like I was the one who started that, is because I started that in 2018, and I had all these big time guys start reaching out to me and ask me like, what's it called? Like what programs I use and whatnot. And at the time I was like, maybe I'll get a shout out from it or whatever. But what I didn't realize was everyone was just going to mass produce it. And then it turned into their thing.
Run.
And it wasn't my thing anymore. And I could have easily just continued to put out the same content, but I looked at it as, okay, perfect. They're all doing this. What really sets me apart? What can I do that's a little bit different, but still puts out the same message? But when people see it, they're able to distinguish, this is his stuff. No one else is making this type of stuff. And you don't have to make it to that level. But think along those lines is, instead of following as many trends, more so look at how can you put out the same information, but in a different, unique way. So what I like doing is, actually, I like doing everything. That's the hard part for me, is like, I like mixing it up, but I know when it comes to structure and consistency, I would say when people are able to come to your page and see like a consistent style of content for maybe like 30 days or 30 posts, and then after you can switch it up to something else. And that's what I've kind of been working on more now.
Okay. I like that.
I would definitely create a certain style that works and really test it out. Like, I used to put out so many different things and none of it were really kind of go the way I wanted. Content is really analytics. And the more you put out, the more you're able to understand what analytics are you able to get back from. Instagram's able to give you a good standpoint and understanding of, okay, this one did better. This is why. Instagram sucks right now for algorithm. I hate Instagram so much. So it takes a lot, but definitely everything's become value based. Put out value. You don't have to be overly consistent. If you're planning on creating stuff, don't overdo it. Like, don't get super excited and post. I've done this before. 5 days in a row, I'll post, maybe even double post in a day. And then 5 days after that, no posts, because I was like, I didn't plan past those 5 posts, right?
Yeah.
So definitely planning, and planning, like what you're doing right now, is collaborating, planning, collaborating, and just consistency and value. I think those are the ingredients that it really takes to really push your brand out to a different level. And all it takes is, if a few people like it and buy into it, it just means that there's more people out there like that. You just haven't found them yet. And how can you get that message out? So if you look at, before I used to get like 2 saves and I'd be super happy, or like 5 saves, and even like 10 saves, I'd be stoked. But now some of my stuff gets, I remember the first time it got to like 500 or 1,000, and I was like, what the heck? And that, when I saw that jump, that's what kind of, I said, maybe it's just a page. So I went to a old style of content, or a different style that I had in mind, and it didn't do nearly as good, which made me understand that this is the style that I need to go. And I even played around with that style. So like, I would have that style, not make it as appealing. Did it get just as much saves? And it did. So like, you play around with it, you test it out, but you can't test out content unless you put out content. So there's a lot of testing in everything. That's what I would advise people the most, is just to test it out, play around with it, see what works, and what works, start mass producing it until it doesn't work anymore. And then it's time to shift.
I like it. Yeah, no, that's been very helpful. I know for me, so I know it'll help people listening in as well. As far as, because I know you put out crazy content, like, you know, obviously like you said earlier, you invested a lot of money and stuff into it. Would you say that you can still put out great content with something as simple as an iPhone, you know, and you don't need all the high tech products and stuff right away? Get started with an iPhone or a GoPro or something like that. And
yeah, easily, dude. iPhones are crazy. In fact, some of my episodes I've recorded bits and pieces from my phones, because it shoots 4K. It's in the moment. I don't have my camera with me.
mm-hmm.
And sometimes I look at it like, especially when you're outside, when you have a camera that is shooting a certain exposure, you have to worry about exposure, your shutter speed, your ISO, everything, and constantly flipping around based on the sunlight. With my phone, it just automatically did everything, and I had headphones in, so audio came out clean. So I was thinking, I was like, I really truly believe that anyone can put out content. In fact, if I really wanted to, maybe this might be an idea, but I could put out a video only with an iPhone, just to show how amazing it could be. It's more so the editing. Even when I first started off, I was getting offers to do work for clients with a camera that when I'd show up, they'd be like, where's your camera? I'm like, this is it. I'm like, this is what I use. And they're like, and they would get worried. They're like, no, like, I want a good quality product. I was like, don't worry, just let me finish, or you can have your money back, whatever. But ultimately it comes down to how you're creative with it. Cameras like iPhones, especially the new ones, even like I have the XS, shoots 4K 60 frames per second. It shoots 1080p 60 frames per second, shoots 720 at 240 frames per second. And frames per second is important. I don't know if you know about frames per second.
A little bit.
So it's just like, imagine a picture. So every time you take a picture, you're getting 60 frames. So it'll take 60 pictures within each second. That's what. So it's just more smoother for sport wise, versus 24, which is cinematic, but it's a little bit choppier, and it's what they use in movies and whatnot to add motion blur in. And I know I'm probably going off on a tangent, but yeah, like iPhones, 100%. I told my buddy the other day, he said he wanted to get a new camera. Should I get this or should I get this? And I said, you need a new phone. You've been talking about a new phone. And I will show you exactly what I've taken with my phone. And the moment I sent it over, he was like, oh, that's crazy. So he took a few pictures and I was on the phone with him. And I told him exactly how to edit it with like the aperture and everything. And he was blown away. And the picture that he already thought was so good became much more appealing because he was able to edit it. So I think editing is the harder part. Filming it is the easiest. It doesn't really matter what you have. You can make it work. And there's plenty of stuff on YouTube like that could show you. I'm sure if you search make a movie with iPhone, something will come up. iPhone movie tutorial, something like that, right? There's plenty of stuff out there. You just have to be willing to put in the time and know that for a week, 2 weeks, maybe even a month, it might not work out the way you want it to. There's plenty of times where I probably spent 12 hours on one video and it did not work out the way I wanted it to. So
Trial and error.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
There's no bypassing that.
Yeah, definitely. I've done the same thing where I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great video, and then just never turns out the way I want it to. So, no, but that's helpful because that's primarily what I'm operating off is my iPhone. I've thought about investing into, nicer camera or, this and that. But I mean, everyone always tells me, man, you got all you need in your hand, for at least for right now, and then you can step it up later. But no, I appreciate that. That's been helpful for sure.
With a camera too, you get more issues, more workflow, more time to do or you have to focus on doing other things. Now you have to worry about like the brightness and all that stuff. Like if you don't have the right shutter speed, the ball is going to be too blurry, yada, yada, yada. So I think especially basketball standpoint, unless you're trying to, like one of my goals, I haven't really said this out loud, is to make it to 1 million following. And I don't really care about following like that. Like I told you, I don't care about Instagram, but it's more so to have the ability to have a positive influence in the world and do good with it. And I also feel like the content I create, I think it would be more so a testament to me being able to get that point because of my content. It's not more so like I'm just getting there to get there. It's I want to see if I have the ability to put out such good stuff that it competes with the top of the top.
Right.
No, and I forget why I was mentioning.
Sorry,
there's a reason why I was mentioning that. I don't want it to come off like I totally forgot why.
It's all pretty much. You just want to reach as many people as possible. It's not so much for the following or having the of having them follow.
The reason I said that was because that's why I have so much camera equipment. Because if you have that in mind, and you're like, I'm a media fanatic. I had a media team. I started a media team. If I dropped basketball and did nothing but media, I could do that full time. And I think that's why camera equipment is more valuable to me, is because I understand that world. But if it was just from a basketball standpoint, I would 100% be on my phone. Maybe invest in a camera, but I wouldn't want to have to worry about too much of the other things outside of basketball.
Gotcha. Well, hey man, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up. But hey, it's been nice communicating with you. I've been following you for a while, so I enjoy the content and stuff you're putting out. So I'm definitely gonna keep tuning into that. You've given me a lot of advice, so I know helping me, it'll help others as well. So appreciate you and appreciate your time. I know you're tired right now, so I appreciate you hopping on this and doing this for me. Feel free to tell them where they can follow you on social media.
Okay.
You can go ahead and plug all your social medias and YouTube and whatnot.
YouTube is, I think if you just search In the Dark Athletics, I'll come up, or my name, Khurram Sultan. On Instagram, it's K Sultan, ITS K Sultan. And then I think those are the main two. I have too many. And then there's ITD Athletics on Instagram as well. And same thing with the website, itdathletics.com.
Perfect.
So that's it.
Well, hey, y'all go ahead and follow him. Get like and subscribe on his videos on YouTube, and definitely tune in, man, because he's putting out some next level content. And as a basketball fan, you don't want to miss out on that. So
No, I appreciate that big time.
appreciate your time today. Appreciate you hopping on, and we'll definitely stay in contact and communicate in the future. So
for sure, I'll let you know when I'm headed to Michigan, and we'll plan it out together.
awesome, let's do it. But
All right,
appreciate it, guys. That concludes Hoop Talk for today. We'll be back next week with another guest. Feel free to like and subscribe to this video. Keep following as I can continue to connect with other trainers and people in the basketball space. But yeah, it's a wrap. I appreciate it, Khurram.
Yeah, appreciate it as well. Take care.
Thanks, man.